Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Thursday morning MSP Acceleration Conversations. I'm Rachel James, the Director of Community here at VCIO Toolbox. And with me, as always, is Brian Doyle, our co-founder.
Good
We
morning.
come to you, good morning, good morning. We come to you every Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern, live in our MSP Customer Success Facebook group and on Zoom to talk about different topics that help you drive account management momentum, uplevel your client relationships, and provide increasingly greater value to your customers. If you have to pop out at any point, no fear. This will be up on our YouTube channel, the VCIO Toolbox YouTube channel. You just search for us inside YouTube and you will find us. All of our coaching calls from Brian has his Tuesday afternoon coaching calls. We have this one every Thursday, and we also do a monthly learning series. All of those videos are on the YouTube channel. So if you want more education, more learning, if you have specific questions, we've probably covered some of them already. You can just pop on there and see all of the videos. If you are with us live today, drop a comment in the Facebook. Let us know you're here. Say hi in the chat if you're on Zoom. It's always fun to know who's joining us. And
It
so that we're
is.
not just screaming into the void.
I don't know. I don't mind doing that sometimes too.
So I know in our weekly email, we said that we would be talking about security and compliance today, but we've done an about face. And instead, we're going to be talking about retention strategies, um, covering the curse of the great MSP, which Brian, I have heard you talk about several times, and is always a good topic to discuss because, like you say, the more we automate, the more things go smoothly and go well, the less we're seen, and then our value is called into question. So, we want to give you some tips and some strategies and some ideas on how to make sure that doesn't happen. And I think first we're going to talk about is losing a customer. So this is a major pain point, nothing fun that we ever want to talk about, but we have to address it and the why of, why it
Yeah.
happens.
No, it's tough, right? When we lose a customer, we all feel it. Sometimes we see it coming. Sometimes it takes us by surprise, and that's when it's the toughest, right? And there's usually a reason that sits behind it. Before we talked there, you kind of alluded to it, Rachel. It's the curse of the great MSP, right? The more we automate, the more we do remotely, the less we're on site, and the less things break. And sometimes as MSPs, we get so focused on service delivery and how we're going about servicing the client, we forget to check in and
Hmm.
say, how do you feel we're doing? Or understanding their perception. Their perception oftentimes when we get there is, hey, why are we paying so much for this service? Nothing breaks anymore. We never see these guys. And they're not understanding, well, that's what you're actually paying for, right? So,
Yeah.
some of the biggest reasons that when we lose a customer is we don't elevate past being an operational partner, right? We're
Hmm.
doing all the work for them, but we're really not making any inroads to showing, hey, this is also how we can drive your organization or be that IT leadership partner. Another thing that's a challenge is sometimes we only have a relationship with our point of contact out at our
Yeah.
client site. And that is the person that, oops, I'm getting a little fuzzy here. I apologize, guys. Um, but that point of contact is generally the person that is our day-to-day operator. Sometimes they're middle management. Sometimes they really don't have budget more than budget influence. They don't have full budget approval, as an example. And these are some challenges, as this occurs. In addition to that, some other things that are challenged, we get that false sense of security. So, I know most MSPs do ticket surveys. And ticket surveys are awesome, Rachel. They give us information in real time. We can get out in front of problems. We get praise, which helps us understand which of our technicians might be doing a good job and with whom. But what they don't tell us is the full story. First, everybody scores equally, whether I'm the CEO of the company or I am or if I'm just the lowest admin in the totem pole. When I respond from a pure scoring perspective, they're the same. I'm probably going to react differently to the CEO if they got a problem, but scoring, it's the same, right? The other challenge that we have is that this doesn't really tell us what the CEOs and the C-suite are thinking at the top, going back to that curse concept. They may be feeling a little differently about it. Hey, why are we not getting more value for our dollar? Can we find a more economical way? So we don't want to get lulled into this false sense of security, and we got to make sure we have a different retention strategy so we're staying engaged at both levels of the organization. Down at the ground floor with the end users so we know our service performance is good, and then also taking a pulse somehow with our senior leadership teams out at our client site. And, a lot of times when we were doing postmortems on customers and said, why did we lose them? It almost never came down to servicing the client or service capability. It really came down to we weren't communicating enough. And that's really where the challenge lives.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is why we are seeing such a huge focus right now on customer success and customer experience. And it's really why you and I were so passionate about starting this Facebook group and putting out some more education, some more content to help with client retention and helping your MSP retain its value. And so I think it would be great to talk about what we can do to improve the relationships and the steps that we can take when we, start to feel that we are at risk with our customers.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm trying to get back into focus for everybody here. But what we want to do is very simple, right? We want to make sure that we are finding ways to stay engaged with the customer, to demonstrate how we're supporting them, even if they can't see it, but doing it in a way that's constructive and valuable to the customer themselves as well. So if we're going to go in there just as a cheerleader and kind of talk about all the great things that we're doing from a performance level, that is an important part of the conversation. But the first time it gets received really excitingly, if you've ever brought those reports out with your, where you stand in terms of, really performing for the client, it's really exciting. First time, good, everything's getting done. Second time, good, we're still on track. You get to the third time, it's like, yeah, I've seen this before. What's in it for me, right? Mm-hmm. So we got to make sure that we're bringing things that are of value to each person in the room. And this is, and the TBR alone is not the cure-all. It's got to be part of a more broad customer success and communication plan. But let's focus on the TBR for a minute. To have an effective TBR, we got to take control of that room. First thing is building a good agenda for the meeting. Too many MSPs go to the QBR without a formal agenda, and the customer takes control. They bring up yesterday's problem, last week's ticket, and you all of a sudden lose a half hour of your hour that you might have budgeted for this to defending a position on something that should be swept under the rug. We need to talk about performance, but we need to set the tone in this meeting that, hey, any problems we have at a service level or anything you want to discuss there, let's bring them up, let's put them into a parking space, and then the people that are involved, for everybody else in the room, for the people that are involved, let's make sure we either stay behind after the meeting or schedule another follow-up. But we want to make sure that they understand with an agenda, hey, these are the steps we're going to take today. And, an idea of an agenda could be very simple. Hey, first tell us what's changed in your business since last time I came in here. Any key people leave, any new wins for you? Is there any change in dynamic? Are you going to grow? Are you going to downsize? What are the key things that are changing within your business today? Then we can move into, if you're a VCIO toolbox user, you're very familiar with this, but, building out seeing how your business plan and your technology plan are intersecting and how we're progressing towards meeting the goals of that business plan. Then we can go into the gaps review at a high level, share a scorecard, and then we focus on the roadmap, both long-term and short-term, and work to gain acceptance on those projects that are short-term to move the needle forward. And that's a simple business review, but now you're bringing some different things that matter to, different people within the office. We have to speak, or your reports in a TBIR or any, interaction you're doing with your customers, you got to be taking into consideration the different roles in the organization and what they want. We've got our CEO, CFO, and COO. So we got to make sure we're talking to them and bringing value, or they're going to stop coming. And that, and then we're back to that problem, or we're just with our decision maker. Not our decision maker, our point of contact again.
Yeah. So maybe let's dive into what each of those roles would be looking for in these reviews? Let's start with the CEO. What kind of data is the CEO going to want to see?
CEO wants to know how, well, let's start with the thing that all roles need. All roles are going to care about security, right? Everybody is security conscious these days, and they're going to want to know they're protected. So let's go with the concept that some level of security assessment is going to play into each of the three roles. But CEOs tend to be bigger picture, right? Their job is to manage the business and have their managers manage the tactical side while they grow and nourish it, right? So they're concerned about where's the intersection, as I mentioned earlier, of the business plan and the technology plan. Are we on track? Are we making moves? And their concerns could be all over the map. Could be workflow related, cost related. They touch upon all those things, but what they really want to know is my technology helping me move my business forward, or is it just acting as a cost center? And most MSPs know what I'm talking about when I say that, Rachel. A lot of people just look at technology as a cost center, a must-have, a need-to-have. And that's because we as MSPs have to do a good job of actually showing them this is how you push the needle forward. This is how you actually, can get to the next level. So with the CEO, we got to go in with a very concise plan that shows them key metrics, KPIs that matter to them, and is really demonstrating how technology is contributing to the business initiatives that hopefully they've jointly defined with you in your strategy plan.
Great. And I would say this, needs to be easy to digest because, the CEO is probably not going to be a technical person.
For anybody that has done any time in the corporate world, you might remember the one-page slides where we jammed as much information as we could in 6-point type into one slide so they could digest it in one frame. Here we maybe break it up a little bit more, but it's really similar to the same thing. Get to the point. That's really what it comes down to with the CEO. Get to the point. How is it helping me? Are we progressing? And then let them turn to your point of contact and ask, are you happy? And if the answer is yes, then it's usually a rubber stamp, check off. But they're happy to know how technology's accelerating. They're not in the void. They're not in the vacuum anymore.
Great. Now, they've got this stamp of approval, but we still have money to talk about. So let's talk about the CFO and what they're going to be looking for.
CFOs hate one thing and one thing only: gotchas. Right? Those moments where something gets overlooked and they got to write a check because they're planners by nature. They need to manage and be a good steward of the customers or the company's financial outcomes. So, there are big bang events we're very aware of. Those big bang events are usually in refresh cycles. Now, the beauty of the cloud is that's moved away from some of the server refresh cycles, which really carried some of the greater costs, but don't diminish the cost of desktop refreshes.
Sure.
If you got 50 employees, that's 50 desktops. And even if you spread them out quarterly, you're still talking about 12 to 15, maybe even $20,000, depending on what they need for a workstation each year. If they do it once every 3 years, you could be talking 50 to 100 grand in cost. You got to imagine that they need some guidance to know when those inflection points are, because also a common thing is CFOs look at last year's budget, look at next year's budget, and adjust for inflation. Under normal terms. So we got to make sure they know where those inflection points are going to be, those interesting projects that are going to drive, refresh cycles as early and as in advance as possible. The other thing is when warranties get missed, right? If we have a warranty and that warranty gets missed from a customer standpoint, from our standpoint, we may have to go to the office and go, oh, Rachel, that PC you brought to light that we've got, 10 warranties that we got to renew. So you need to cut me a check for $2,000 so I can even get manufacturer support as we move forward. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to cut that check. That's akin to at home when you find out your furnace breaks, right? That unexpected thing that costs you out of the corner. So with CFOs, we really want to make sure that they see a very predictable budget model. They know where their recurring costs live because those are the costs they're going to have to live with. They know where their project costs are. And wherever possible, especially with those refreshes, we're able to show them even years in advance, right? So they get an idea of where it's coming. And for those of you that have been in this position, I'll close the CFO conversation with nothing's worse, too, than when CFOs change hands. The more information around budget we can give to the CFO that they can see up front and then ask us about that way is better than bringing numbers to them and any preconceived notions they have before you get there. now get up, we're upsetting the apple cart, if you will. So, we want to do that, and also take into consideration the CFOs may not have any knowledge transfer between each other. So Joe, the new CFO, might not know next year's refresh cycle year and not count for it. And now they look bad, and that's not going to keep you with the customer very long.
Sure. All right. So let's then talk about the COO. What would they be looking for in these reviews?
So, your COO or your operations person, or it even could be your office manager, depending on the size of the company, they're responsible for the day-to-day outcomes within the business, right? They got to keep the ship running. They got to keep whatever you're doing, whether you're a manufacturer, a professional services organization, a doctor's office. They got to keep the wheels on the train spinning, and they got to keep things on schedule, right? That's really what it comes down to. So what they're really looking for is innovation. They want to understand how we can enhance workflows, automate processes. It's not necessarily with the idea of getting rid of employees. It's more, how can we get more out of the people who are here, and how can we be more efficient in delivering whatever our widget or whatever our services that we're delivering out to the marketplace. And innovation goes beyond our common break fix kind of things that in IT support that MSPs have been responsible for. Of course, we talk a lot about security innovation, how to better protect against emerging threats. But there's we had Bill Stucklin on last week on our learning series.
And just about to bring him up.
We talked about process automation and robotic process automation, and everybody's aware of chatbots in support guiding you before they turn it over to an agent. These are all things that reduce cost of operations that MSPs have to be akin to. We also have to understand the applications at a little bit higher level than we used to, because these cloud applications do have integrations that we need to know about and potentially can foster more workflow. So, especially you MSPs that are vertically specialized, you're going to want to learn more about the common apps there and see if there's anything you can do from an advisory standpoint to help these guys move forward. Because operations people are just really looking at how do we do things at the lowest cost, the most efficient way possible, and on time. Period.
Yeah.
End of conversation, whatever that looks like there. So, we've got to have those conversations, and as a community, we got to think bigger. We got to think of our role bigger and get into that comfortable with that leadership role and look at different technologies and say, even if we don't make direct dollars on it, how can we make indirect dollars through advising?
Yeah. Well, I know we don't have a lot of time left, but maybe we can just do like a high level touch on how we stay engaged in between these review meetings.
Yeah, and I say that we break this out to another session, Rachel, as we move forward too. But simply put, I mentioned ticket surveys. You got to have some sort of survey at the executive or stakeholder level too. So whether that's a customer satisfaction, an NPS report, or you just ask them some questions about how I'm doing, especially those customers you see only a couple times a year. In a full business review format, you got to have a way to stay engaged in between meetings and see if risk is brewing in the relationship. The second thing, and then we can see if those things are matching up with what we're seeing on the ground level. The other thing is you got to have a cadence of live calls. And I'm saying the word calls here. They shouldn't just be emails. They shouldn't be just pop-ins that way. Your best customers, you better be calling at least monthly just to say, how are you doing? How are we doing? Anything I can do for you. Don't sell. Don't push. Don't do anything. It's a relationship call. But you do want to get a temperature and a pulse coming out of it. If it's, emails are fine, but emails don't get the job done and emails get overlooked, right? So we want to make sure that we're bringing something of value. Maybe bring some industry-specific news to them, right? As we're recording this, a lot of the unrest is going on in the Ukraine, unfortunately, right? But that has a cyber terrorist effect downstream. So let your customer know, are they protected? What do they need to be cautious of? What should they be on high alert for so they can communicate it to their teams? It could be as simple as, hey, just reiterate your phishing story. Don't let people open up emails if they don't know who they're from, because today this is a real problem that we need to be concerned about. Maybe even a little more so than on the average day, because you should be concerned every day. But those are the kind of things we can bring into a call if you're trying to figure out, what do I even talk to them about? Hey, Rachel, how you doing? Good. Great, thanks. You don't want that to be the call.
Right.
Hey, Rachel, anything change in your business since we got together at the QBR? No? Great. Glad to hear things are status quo and moving forward for you. On our side, everything's moving smoothly. We're seeing good things on the back end. Nothing new to report to you. But I wanted to make sure that you were feeling the same thing that I'm seeing from your seat. Another
Sure.
thing I just want to let you know is this is going on in the world, and just something you might want to take in consideration, or hey, this is something that we're hearing in the industry that might change. Or as we know, vendors get bought all the time. Hey, one of the vendors we use has been acquired, and we just want to let you know that we're closely monitoring what's going on there, and we'll let you know if there's anything you need to consider further in the future.
Great.
It's simple,
Yeah.
man, but that brings value. It lets them know you're thinking about them, you're top of
Yes.
mind instead of back of mind, and that you're
Yes.
bringing them some information that they could use. But notice I didn't ask you for $1 in that conversation.
Right. Right. Everyone likes to know that they're being thought of.
Yes. Yes.
Great. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our live session today. Brian, I know you have an 11 o'clock, so I don't know if we have time to open up the floor for anyone today.
I don't know if we do either, but certainly we've got a couple minutes. If anybody's got something they'd like to ask, please drop it into comments, or certainly put it into Q&A in Zoom. Otherwise,
Yeah, and for anyone watching this, the replay, whether it's in the Facebook group or on YouTube, please leave a comment if you have any questions about anything, or if there's anything that you feel like we're doing very well. We would like to know that too.
Again, if you've got questions you want us to cover, let us know as well. And
absolutely.
And subscribe, guys. That's when you'll get all the latest fresh content. So subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yeah. Great. Well, I think that's it for today, Brian.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Rachel, and thank you, everybody, for attending today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.